everyone, it's Jared here with the Customizing Culture podcast brought to you by Heat Press Nation. Man, I am super excited about today's episode. We have a very special guest, Lee Stuart. Now, those of you guys who already follow him, you know that he speaks his mind and he doesn't hold anything back. So as a result, we made the decision to not censor this podcast. So you will hear some strong language. If you're opposed to that, go ahead and check out another one of our episodes. If you have small kids in the room, you don't want them to hear this kind of language, you can go ahead and put some Bluey on for them in the other room. But yeah, well, with that being said, with us today, we have Lee Stuart. He has probably one of my favorite channels, not just in the creator space, but just on YouTube. Extremely entertaining. And yeah, he does a lot. So I'm going to kind of let him tell us. Lee, do me a favor, introduce yourself and a little bit about what you do.
It's already a hell of an intro, man. My name's Lee Stuart. I'm the owner of Rogue Lab. We are a print shop. We do pretty much everything at this point, from screen printing, embroidery, heat press, DTG, you name it. And yeah, I have a large YouTube channel where I cover a lot of this stuff. I teach people the ins and outs of the business and, try not to make an ass of myself at the same time.
Yeah. Well, you do, dude, you do a fantastic job. Man, Thank you. I Googled you, or I should say I Googled, because you're Winnipeg, right?
That's right, yeah.
Winnipeg, yeah. So Google says you're at around 21 degrees today. Like, how does that work out with running a shop? Like, does that affect, do you have to take special precautions? Does your ink freeze? Like, how does that work out?
That's actually warm right now for us at this time of year.
Okay.
It's crazy. Like midwinter, when it's fully winter is in, full throttle mode, it gets cold. We're talking like -30, -40 at times.
Okay.
Yeah. It gets crazy. But we have the polar opposite though in the summertime. It's over 100 degrees in the summertime. It's super weird.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So pretty much we get hit with all the elements. But as far as my shop's concerned, it really has no effect. I got big ass furnace in there and air conditioning and all that type of stuff. So whatever the weather throws at me, I'm prepared, except for the heat in the summer. It doesn't matter how big my air conditioner is. It will not keep up because once you get the dryer and the flashes going all day, it's hot in there.
Oh, man, I bet. Man, you said -20, -30. I thought we had it bad. The other day, we got into the 30s, and everybody out here in because we're in Southern California, everybody thought all hell had broken loose with the weather. Like, everybody was losing their minds over 32 degrees.
Yeah. Oh, that's springtime weather for us. That's normal.
You're out in your shorts in 32?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, that's awesome. All right, so to kind of get into your background, you were a professional motorcycle snowmobile rider, which to me is already like one of the coolest things that someone could possibly be, right? But you started at a really young age. You were 15 when you turned pro. Like, how does that even work out? Like, were your parents riders? Like, how did you get introduced to that, to where you were a pro at 15?
Yeah, so my parents were into motorsports ever since I was a little kid.
Okay.
My first ride on a snowmobile, I was like, 4 or 6 weeks old, something like that.
Oh, nice. Okay.
I was a full-blown infant. And yeah, I started riding when I was around 4 or 5 years old, I believe. And just did it for fun for a long time, and did some little mini races here and there, nothing too crazy. And then I started racing when I was around 10. And really I just had it, I guess you could say. My first year, like anyone, sucked, but then I've always had that competitive drive in me to where if I suck at something, it's like, now it's my mission. I got to be good at this. And not only be good at this, I want to be the best at this. And that's been in me since I was a little kid. And by the following year, I went from being the kid in last place in it was like the 80cc 7 to 12 class or whatever, to the following year I won the championship.
Wow.
And then just progressed really fast from there, racing snowmobiles and dirt bikes at the same time year round. Progressed from like the junior and kind of entry classes up into the intermediate and pro classes by the time I was 14 years old. And then this whole freestyle motocross, freestyle snowmobile thing started really blowing up and taking off around the time it was like the early 2000s. And I decided I wanted to do that because even though I like racing a lot, I always like doing tricks more than anything. Like I was always, if I won a race, or even if I was like 10th place in a race, I would always do a trick over the finish line because that's like my heroes did. It was the coolest thing in the world.
That's cool.
And then, you see those videos like the Crusty Demons of Dirt videos and things like that. Like I watched those religiously as a kid and wanted to do all that coolest type of stuff, the tricks and the big jumps and whatever. So as soon as freestyle came around, I was like, man, I already got a decent bag of tricks just from playing around, and I'm going to try out for this thing. And sure enough, I made it. And within like 2 or 3 months, I was competing against all the guys that I looked up to as a kid. It was crazy.
That's a trip. So, yeah. so around that time, like, who were some of the names? Because I remember for a little while, I didn't even know about freestyle motocross until like X Games came around. And then it was basically whoever was doing the X Games circuits, because we didn't have cable, and X Games would come on local TV for us when they were in town. So like I remember watching dudes like Brian Deegan. Man, because he was Metal Militia, which I thought, oh dude, that guy's so rad.
Those guys were my heroes as a kid.
Okay, were they?
Yeah, they were absolutely. That's like everyone, like, there's a Travis Pastrana, and like Travis Pastrana, he's a legend. Like no one can do what he has done. And then there was those guys, they were like the polar opposites, you got the good guy Captain America, and then those dudes were like the dark side evil dudes, and that was my my taste of things. So I really looked up to those guys, and then I was riding shows with them a few years later. It was weird.
So then what made you exit, I don't want to say the scene, but because you've said it before, like you started when you're 15 and then you retired, which is a funny thing to say, but you retired at 25. What made you realize that it was kind of the end of that part of your life?
I put my main focus into the snowmobile side of things, because the freestyle motocross side I was good at, but I was never really like at that level of like, the Brian Deegans of the world and things like that. Like I was like a B team rider compared to those dudes. But on the snowmobile side, I was one of the top 3 riders in the world.
Oh, cool.
Because that was what I did more than anything. The dirt bike stuff was mainly like, it was a supplement to the snowmobile side of things when I couldn't ride that. So the snowmobile side of things, I went hard on that for a very long time. I won a lot of events throughout my career. Pretty much 1 year, I think I won, what the hell was it? That series was like 13 or 12 events, and I won 9 or 10 of them, something like that. It was pretty awesome. And then, the sport started shifting. That's when things really started getting crazier. That's when like backflips on snowmobiles started becoming a normal thing. And then guys started doing tricks during backflips, and it started getting crazier and crazier and crazier. And that's when I kind of realized, like, I don't think I have this anymore, because I could do it, but it scared the absolute shit out of me. And as soon as you kind of have that fear, it's like, it's over for you, really. Like, you got to either bust through it or move on. And I couldn't get past that ceiling of some of this stuff, and seeing some people I know like get really hurt and things like that along the way, and like,
I was about to
permanently
say,
hurt for the rest of their lives.
Heights,
I was like,
if you mess up at those heights, you're pretty much done, right? Like,
well, think about it. If you under rotate a flip on a snowmobile, you got 450 pounds coming down on top of you from like 40 feet in the air. Like, you're, if you are able to live through that, you're lucky.
You're toast.
It's bad news. And I saw some bad stuff happen my last couple of years, and it kind of shook me a little bit. And I was just like, you know what? I don't think I want to do this anymore. I think I want to try being a normal person and getting a normal job and things like that. And I realized real quick, a normal job was not for me. And that's what started the whole YouTube career. Yeah.
So you again, normal job doesn't work out, which, it's funny. That's kind of been like a recurring theme. We're not releasing these in sequence, so I'm not sure exactly when this episode's going to come out. But we've interviewed a handful of people already, and they're all the same thing. It's like, hey, this 9 to 5, this bank teller stuff is just not going to fly with how I want to live my life. Was that the biggest reason why you started YouTube, or, your own company, or was that just like one of the factors?
Yeah, like I started a few things in between that whole period. So I started off, once I was done riding, I moved back home where I grew up. I got a job as a cable guy, actually, and made really, really good money. It was awesome, but I just hated every minute of it. It was the worst, being in people's houses all day. And like, you think people are weird out on the street? Try being alone with them in their house. That's when they're their weirdest.
Oh, no thanks.
I got some stories. We could fill a whole podcast with just stories from that. So I did that for a while. Didn't really enjoy that. I worked in a couple like bike shops and stuff, and that was definitely, my cup of tea. But at the same time, I didn't really take in orders from people. Plus, being like a parts guy or whatever, you're not really going to get super far. So I went to school to become a motorcycle mechanic, which I already pretty much had every bit of knowledge I needed for that. I just needed the piece of paper, because I've been working on bikes since I was 5 years old. I knew the instructor. I came in there. He's like, what the fuck are you doing here? He's like, you can just take the paper and go pretty much. He's like, I know you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I breezed through that. It was like, a year-long course, and I was out of there in like 6 months, something like that. I was going to start my own bike shop. That was going to be my first entrepreneurial thing. And it was going okay to start off. I really do enjoy working on motorcycles and building them and doing cool stuff to them. But I realized quick that I don't like working on other people's stuff. I like building my own shit, but not somebody else's. Cause like my stuff, I always build these like extravagant, cool, like really awesome pieces. And my day to day was like rebuilding blown up engines and, rebuilding suspensions and working on, bikes and things that people didn't take care of. And that sucked a lot of the fun out of it. Pretty quick.
Basically the boringest part, the boringest possible thing you could do with that.
Yeah. So it's like, I'm spending a lot of my day, like rethreading fucking bolt holes and like doing like weird, stupid things that just like, I felt like, I don't know, I shouldn't be doing. I have better talents than this. And, unfortunately, where I live, there's not really a big market for the custom bike thing or really like high end type of stuff because we only can ride, like 5-6 months a year. So that's kind of a kind of a thing. So I decided, this starting a bike shop thing, probably not a good idea. I don't see this really working out. And I built a bike at that time. It was going to be kind of like almost like a flagship project for the shop to show it off. And I was going to show it on social media and YouTube and things like that. It was this Harley Dyna I started building up. And that was around the time the Harley scene kind of started seeing this like stunt scene blow up within it. Guys doing wheelies and tricks and stuff on big ass Harleys. And I was like, well, compared to what I used to do, that's easy. I could do that in my sleep. So I was like, I'm going to just take this thing and do that. Let's see what happens. Started putting that on the internet, and it turned into a thing pretty quick. And that's what started the whole YouTube journey. I made one video and people were like, I want more of that. That was awesome. So then I started trying to figure out how to make more stuff. I started doing a thing called motovlogging and making little stunt videos here and there. And then, yeah, that was the whole start of YouTube for me. It kind of just happened out of, not knowing what to do.
Yeah, that's interesting. So YouTube was the first, because I was kind of wondering like what came first, like, because I know you from your screen print shop, and we'll get to that. But like, but I was always wondering like, well, what came first, like the shop or the channel? So it was the channel.
The channel was first. I did that for, what was it, like almost 2 years, something like that. And it was gaining okay popularity. Didn't like blow up or anything. I think I had like 10,000 subscribers or something like that. It was definitely not a small number, but definitely nothing that's going to pay the bills and be a full-time job. That's for sure. Especially when you're stunting a Harley on the internet and breaking the shit out of it every week. Like I was losing more money than I was making, and that was the problem. Yeah. And that's what actually led me into this industry, because I was broke. I was trying so hard to make the Harley thing on YouTube work, and I had no support, no sponsors, no nothing. So it was all out of my pocket. I was spending, $1 would come in, I'd spend $5. And
it's great business practice.
Before I knew it, I had like $200 left in my bank account and a choice to like sell my house, move back home with my mom, and like, I was in dire straits essentially. Yeah. And I had this brilliant idea. I was like, I'm going to make a last ditch effort here to sell merch to my YouTube audience. And a lot of people were doing, like things like Teespring and all that type of stuff, the print on demand, which I didn't really like because the quality sucked, and it just, the margins aren't really there. You make like $1 or $2 a shirt when you go that route. It just, you can't really make money.
It's a numbers game. You have to be selling thousands.
You have to be selling big volume. Yeah. And for a small channel, I'd be selling a handful of shirts a month, like 20 a month. So I wasn't really making, I was making a couple $100 here and there, enough to maybe buy a new tire, and I'd go roast 3 of them the next week. And so I decided, I'm going to start a clothing brand and see what happens. At least then I have control over my margins. I'll make a lot more money, hopefully. And then I've got, I don't know, something maybe I can show people on the channel, because then I could maybe like promote it and have this stuff in my hands rather than the print on demand people dealing with it. And so I started a little clothing brand called 38 Ride Company. I made a video showing it's still on my channel today, showing like the launch day, me in this tiny little bedroom with like a little stack of shirts. And it was crazy. That video came out, and it was weird because like no one really knew about the brand yet, like until after I put the video up, but enough people knew about it that I sold out everything I made the first 2 days.
Nice.
So that was like, it made the video cool. Obviously, I was like, wow, I blew out all my stock. This is awesome. And that, like, I guess showed people that, maybe this is something cool. Maybe we should buy this now. And then more and more orders started coming in. And
was it encouraging selling out that fast? You're like, oh, hey, like I don't have to sell my house and move back home. Like,
yeah,
was it a good boost of confidence?
Oh, big time. And it was crazy because like I had no money. I had like $200 in my account. The way that I got that brand started was like I went to the bank, I got a credit card for like $5,000. I just maxed it out. Oh, it was like, okay. Got everything I needed to start it up. I sat in my front lawn for like 5 days, spray painting my logo on all the boxes and stuff. Like I went the extra mile to try and make it look like a professional brand, even though it was this little rinky-dink thing in my basement. And yeah, people they connected with it for some reason, which was amazing. And the stuff just flew off the shelves immediately. And I was like, wow, that's awesome. I'm going to take whatever money I made from that. I'm putting it all back in and doubling down and seeing if I can do it again. And sure enough, it happened again. And I did that like 3 or 4 times before I actually took some money for myself to pay the bills. And it just kept happening. I was like, well, I think I have something here. This is amazing. And it was cool to see that happen. But at the same time, this whole thing turning into a business, and I didn't know how to run a business. I was trying to learn. And because of that, I stopped making YouTube videos because I didn't have time anymore. It was like I was worried about shipping orders and doing all this stuff and getting new designs going and dealing with all the print shops and whatever. And
were you one-man operation at this time?
I was. I still am.
Still, yeah. Okay.
Pretty much, yeah. So I was dealing with all that stuff and ended up not making YouTube videos anymore. I was out of YouTube for like a year. And people started wondering what was going on and that type of thing. And then all of a sudden I came back swinging with a whole new type of content of making the stuff myself with my little screen print shop.
Yeah, can you elaborate on that? Because I think it's really interesting. You're starting your brand. So you're not even starting a t-shirt shop, starting a brand, and then you run into certain like issues where the need arises. What made you, or actually, can you tell us that story? Because I have a follow-up question. But for those who don't know, how did you go from starting a brand to starting a shop?
So yeah, I was getting my stuff made by local screen printers, local embroiderers, all that type of thing, like everybody does. However, our local people they were shit in the bed, man. It was I can't. Some of them might be listening to this, and I don't even care. It was
hey, do better, right? They should just do better.
They need to do better, and they were just. It was. I'm really about the details and stuff. Even before I got in this industry, I knew what a good piece of product was because of my former stuff riding for a living. I rode for some of the top clothing brands in those industries and things like that. I got to see how a lot of the sauce was made, and I knew what a good screen print was. I knew what good embroidery was, and this wasn't it. It was really, really bad. And so I was just bouncing around from shop to shop to shop trying to find something, and like I'd find one would be cool people to deal with. Their product sucked. Found one that the product was okay, but they were total assholes. And then all this this just kept happening for like a 6-month span. And every time it happened, I was missing release dates. I was, not able to fulfill certain obligations to customers, things like that. And this was also my livelihood. If somebody misses a deadline on something, I can't pay the bills that month. And that was the hardest part about it. And I was just like, you know what, man? There's only going to be one way this happens the way that I want it to, and that's if I do this myself. And once I figured that out, I was like, all right, well, where do I start? Started off with a little hat heat press in that little tiny bedroom because that's all I could afford at the time. And I started just pressing patches onto hats, and those took off. And I was like, wow, this is working. My margins are higher now. People are asking me to make patches for them. Sweet. So I'll start making patches for people. Then I used that money and I got a little Graph Tech plotter, started doing little vinyl transfers, things like that. I never used it for my brand, but I was able to do client jobs, like the little one-offs that came through the door. And then expanded further and further to a full-size heat press. I was able to start doing plastisol transfers for customers. I was still having shops screen print my stuff because I knew the quality level just wasn't the same with a transfer versus an actual screen print. And then it was a pretty short process, man. It's now that I look back at it, it was like maybe 7 months from a tiny little heat press to go into a full-blown screen print shop.
Would you say it instantly clicked with you? Because it sounds like it did. Like you make it yourself and you're like, oh, I can control all this. Was it like just something clicked in you and you had to now control it all?
It did, yeah. As soon as I noticed like that I was able to, for one, produce the thing and not really make a colossal mistake along the way, that was sweet. But also I was able to kind of fine tune things and like try different stuff and see what worked, see what didn't, see what produced quality, see what produced shit. And it was crazy, man. And then just that gap between heat pressing to the screen print shop, that was the big scary one, right? Because if anyone saw my first videos coming back and starting to show this whole screen print thing, like I didn't go small like people do with screen printing. I didn't start off with a little press. I didn't start off with a little beginner setup. I dumped like 30 grand and went head first into a full professional shop. I ripped the whole basement out of my house and turned it into a full-blown production space. And that's kind of why my channel blew up, honestly, because at that time, and I still think to this day, honestly, I still to this day have not seen a home print shop at that level. That was like the first of its kind.
Yeah, so
like, wow.
I want to comment on that because your basement tour, it blew, that video went viral. But like, there's an attention to aesthetic detail that you have that in my opinion, my dumb opinion, I think that's one of the big reasons why maybe that video took off or why people liked it, because your basement shop looked nicer than 99% of the pro shops out there.
Right.
You see other pro shop videos and they're in like a warehouse, they're in a car garage. They're just making use of the space and nobody bothers to make it look nice. Everything looks all crusty and dusty and like I see those shops and I'm like, dude, I don't want them to print my stuff. It just looks
right.
It's kind of weird how that works out. Where does your attention to aesthetic detail come from? Is that just is like innate? You just, I don't know, how does that work out? Where does that come from you?
It's mainly like, it's optics for me, right? So it's like you said, if you see some of these other shops, it's like you don't want them to print your stuff. And everyone knows that old saying, garbage in, garbage out. And that's that's what I saw at a lot of places. And when I decided that I'm going to start showing people this stuff on the internet, because I guess circling back a little bit to me not making videos to making videos again, when I made the decision that I'm going to document this whole process of starting this screen print shop and really taking control of my own brand and putting it on the internet for people, because for one, I just really missed making YouTube videos, and this would be the only way that I could do it with my new schedule full of stuff that I had to do. Just combine all the worlds together. And at that point, I kind of made the conscious decision that I was like, if I'm going to show this to that many people and I'm going to be putting this on social media under like a business name, things like that, like I want to be presentable. I want it to look awesome. I want people to like take me seriously. I don't want someone to be like, this guy's working out of his house kind of thing. And when they usually when you describe someone who's like working out of their house, it puts an image in your head of like, oh, this is some little bullshit operation kind of, and it does. And it's unfortunate because some people are doing some amazing stuff out of their home setups, but it's just a mentality that's in a lot of people. And, so when I did this, I was like, I'm gonna eradicate that out of people's minds. I'm gonna make this look like a pro shop. It's gonna be sparkling clean. It's gonna look awesome. And in the background, all my social media stuff and in these YouTube videos, people are gonna be like, holy shit, this guy's legit. And sure enough, I was right about that.
For sure.
It kind of just took off in a big way. People are like, wow, that home shop is crazy. And like, I have a thing kind of ingrained into me about keeping stuff clean when I'm working. And that came from riding for a living, being around some of these like really top tier, high level mechanics that like, they lay out when they're taking an engine apart, every bolt is laid out just perfectly by size. There's like, even though you're taking apart a greasy, oily engine, somehow everything is sparkling clean all the time. And the guy that I learned a lot of this stuff from, he told me a piece of advice one day that really stuck with me, because he gave me this advice when I was about to start a motorcycle shop. He said, if you're going to hire a mechanic, before you even say anything to this guy, he's like, go out in the parking lot and look at the back seat of his car. And I was like, why? And he's like, cause if his car is clean and whatever and nicely organized, that's how he's going to keep your tools and keep your shop. If it's full of fucking old clothes and French fries and just like a scattered mess back there, that is what he's going to do to your shop. And I was like, that really makes a lot of sense.
That does, because my car
that stuck with me forever.
That makes so much sense, because my car back seat is a filthy mess, and my heat press station is a filthy mess.
Yeah, and that stuck with me, man. And I was just like, so from there on out, it's like I'm keeping everything clean, and it's amazing how much easier your work is when you have a nice clean shop.
Yeah. Question, kind of going back a little bit to the aesthetic of it. Is it your passion for making things look good, besides the clean factor, would you say it's more that you hate ugly or you love pretty?
Yeah, see, that's a tough one. I guess it's more or less I hate ugly, because I mean, my shop's not always pretty. It's a real shop. Sometimes I'm getting ink on the floor or whatever, or I'm super busy and there's shirts scattered all over the place and whatever. And You know, there's times you might walk in my shop and it's like, oh, this isn't as great as it looks on camera. But like when that end of the day rolls around, it's like it's cleanup time. I got to do some stuff and get this back in order. But I just can't stand like the look of some of these places, man. And that was again with starting up my own thing. You know, some of these shops, somehow you wouldn't even be in the shop yet and you'd have ink on you. You're in the parking lot and you got ink on you. It's like, how is this possible? You know, it just, if I'm going to have clients coming in out of stuff, I want to be something that they talk about with people.
Yeah.
For sure. And putting this out on the internet for now, whatever it is, 112,000 people, something like that. Like they still talk about that. That shop is immaculate. And that's what I want to, you know, I want that whole thing to be ingrained with my brand.
Yeah, I think another wild part about that shop is that it's so DIY. And you're like the king of DIY, but not like I made this weird, crusty little, and these are just my notes, so these are my leash. So I don't, because I will, oh my God, I will ramble and tangent so bad. It's really bad.
Oh,
so
me too.
They put me on a leash right here. See, what was I even saying? Oh yeah, so you're the king of DIY, right? But not like I made this weird, crusty little project with a hot glue gun and old wine bottles, right? It's more like DIY, like, no, if you want something done right, you got to do it yourself. Yeah. And your commitment to DIY is I don't want to say crazy, but it's definitely unusual. Where does that come from? Like, was that like ingrained to you from like a kid? Is that like a big part of your like family ethic? Like where does just the super hardcore commitment to DIY come from?
I don't know. I guess like I said, it just kind of goes back to my competitiveness. Like if I'm going to do anything, if I'm going to I'm the most competitive person ever, like to an annoying amount. If I'm going to do literally anything, I want to be the best at it.
Are game nights at your house crazy?
Oh, it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. I'm a sore winner and a sore loser. But like if I'm not good at something, it drives me nuts to a point that like I can't sleep at night. Like, for example, stupidest thing in the world. Remember when Guitar Hero really blew up? Like Guitar Hero 2 or whatever it was?
Yeah.
That was the one that really took off, right? Mm-hmm. I went to a party and I'd never played it before. I was just blowing it so hard. Like it was the worst. I couldn't even play on easy mode.
I have a theory
for
about
starters,
that,
it was because they didn't tell me there's lefty mode. I'm left-handed, so I'm trying to play it backwards. I'm playing left-handed, but the screen's right, so they couldn't connect it. But either way, I was sucking so hard, and people were just ripping on me for it. And I was like, you'd think something like that, a normal person would just be like, I don't give a shit, and just, you know, move on with their life and do something completely different. Me, however, I went to the extent, I went home, I bought an Xbox, I bought that game. I practiced like crazy to the point where, like, I think it was like 3 months later, something like that, playing the Dragon Force song Through the Fire and Flames on Expert with my back turned to the TV and getting like 95% on this stuff. Like I got that good at that game simply because people were making fun of me at a party once.
Dude,
that sums up my competitive nature.
Now, you play guitar in real life, right?
Yeah, okay. I do. I did after I got so good at that game, because after I got to a point where I was that good at it, I was like, what am I doing? If I put this amount of effort into a real guitar, I could actually play one by now. And I just like took that controller in front of my friends and I snapped it in half and was like, I'm never touching this again. And I didn't.
That's funny. Okay, well then maybe that doesn't prove my theory. So I play guitar for real. And then when I started playing Guitar Hero, I sucked incredibly bad at it. And
it's weird how it doesn't translate, does it?
It doesn't at all. And so my theory is that real guitarists suck at Guitar Hero, but video gamers who can't play guitar are really good at it. But that's just a theory.
That was the turning point for me. I was living with a dude who played in a metal band. I'm a big time metal guy, hence that. And these dudes were playing some like really complex stuff, some like, you know, some Lamb of God songs and whatever. And they were jamming out for like a good hour. And I was sitting there like rocking. I'm like, yeah, man, they're killing it. Like they're nailing this stuff. And then after they were done, he's like, man, you got to see this guy play Guitar Hero. And I'm playing that song for them, and they're just like, wow, that's incredible. And I'm like, are you serious? You guys were just playing like awesome real stuff. And that was when I literally like broke the controller, and I was like, you, guitar guy, we're going to the music store right now. I need to pick out a guitar. And we did. But anyways, that's just what I'm like. So when I started doing this whole printing thing, like, I couldn't put out a mediocre product, especially if I'm going to put it out on the internet for people, and all these people are going to be looking at me and judging me and whatever. Like, I got to hold myself to a high standard. So I'm going to be practicing my ass off to get good at it. And of course, all the first stuff, it came out It's funny because the first print that came off that press was literally better than all the shops that made my stuff before. So I was like, all right, I'm off to a good start. But I did make a lot of mistakes along the way. And you know how it's like on YouTube. If you make any sort of mistake on the internet, you're going to hear about it big time in the comments. And,
all of a sudden, all the professionals that could have done your shirt great, where were they? They're in the comments. They're not.
And dude, and I'm thankful for that stuff. Like, these people think they're like getting the upper hand on me. You know, they're going to go in my comments and talk shit about me and like take me down a peg or something like that. And I'm like, do it, please. Give it to me, because you're just fueling the fire for me to get better and better and better. And even still to this day, like, even though I'm operating at a pro level, there is a legion of people that like to talk shit about me all day. And I'm just like, keep it coming, because I'm just going to keep getting better off this. And
it's like a WWE vibe. Like when you're like the villain, when you're Undertaker coming out, everyone's booing, and you're like,
that's what it feels like sometimes. And yeah, man, it's pure competitive nature for me. And that's really what it boils down to. Is just, I want to be good at whatever I touch. I don't want to half-ass anything ever. And that's thankfully gotten me to this point in this industry.
Yeah, man, I definitely agree with you 100%, because nobody wants to learn how to do something sucky, right? And a lot of your content is super valued because you take the time, and that's why. So I don't even screen print, and I've seen like most of your videos. Even the screen printing ones, like the process, I'm like, dude, this is like super valuable stuff. I really loved your video when you were doing, I think it was like the discharge or water-based process. With that one, like, I don't know what it was, like a girl riding a motorcycle or something like that. The shirt that took you 4 days to print.
Oh yeah,
That's like
that
the
one
title.
was that was a standard plastisol print, but yeah, that one was like it was a bigger order, like for a manual press, and it was like a 7-color print or something like that, or a 7 or 8. It was a big one, and you know, on manual press that takes some time. So I was there for 4 days. By the end of that 4 days, my hands were like, the skin was falling off them. I was just hating life, but you know, I got it done.
You got it done. You got it done beautifully, and I think that's why. I'm sure. I don't know the numbers on that video specifically, but I think
that was actually the last print that I did in my old home shop.
Oh, before you moved?
I think that was the last video, the last print before everything changed. Pretty sure.
So now's actually a good time to bring that up. So your shop takes off, your channel takes off, and then to the point to where now what made you want to move to the bigger shop? Was it just necessity? Like, dude, I can't handle these orders in this little shop, or was it just like, hey, I can afford it now. The channel's doing good. Let's go.
Well, yeah, it was mainly the shop, because a lot of people think that the channel's what's making the money and stuff, and that's the business. And it's not. That's why I don't make videos every week like a normal YouTuber does, because the business is the main business. It's literally like a tenfold difference. And yeah, I was just like, I can't continue to manually print this much anymore. I physically cannot do it anymore. I was printing, 8 to 12 hours a day, every day, 7 days a week. And just like, I'm messing up
that should shut
my
up
body.
That should shut up anybody who thinks that like you don't have a real job. Because people who, like anyone from like banking or whatever who looks out and they see like printers and shop, like, go get a real job, hippie. And I'm like, and it's like, dude, you obviously do not know the work that goes into running something like this.
It's crazy, and it's physical. It's fucking hot and sweaty, and it's dirty a lot of times too. And like sometimes it's wet. You're reclaiming screens for a whole day. If you're a one-man shop, you got to reclaim like 50 screens. You're coming out of there soaked and covered in ink and shit. It's not a good time all the time. And but yeah, it's physical. And at that point, I was literally printing every single day, and I was just like, I can't keep doing this. There's no way. It's either I'm going to like burn myself out, or I'm going to like physically injure myself or something like that. And plus, like, I can't grow the business this way. I can only take so much work. I was turning away for every like 10 jobs that came in. I was turning away 5 because I just can't physically print that much.
Yeah.
So I was kind of cherry picking at the time, which sucked because I should have made the move a lot sooner, but I just wanted to make sure that I had a rock solid foundation for the business and also for myself. I wanted to make sure I was a good enough printer to take on this amount of work. So kind of took it easy for the first couple of years, and just like I really just focused on becoming a good printer, and then yeah, I came to a point where it's like, if I'm going to expand this business and like turn this into something bigger, I got to move. And I started kind of looking around for like commercial space, things like that. It was crazy to find out that like to own a commercial space, that was going to be my first option. I was like, I want to buy a commercial space because I don't like renting. I won't lease. I don't like giving money away to people just for something that I'll never own. It just doesn't make sense to me. And so I wanted to buy a commercial space, and that I got the brakes put on me real fast for that one, because apparently where I live, it's not like a house where 10% down, whatever it is. You got to put down like 45% on a commercial space. And I was like, who the hell has that? Like commercial space starts at like $900,000. Like who has that just laying around? So that's out. So I was like, you know what? Why don't I just continue what I'm doing? Let's go the home shop route again, but let's find a property with big acreage and a big a building on it and some room to expand and build like a real print shop, but still at home. And that's what I ended up doing. It took me a year to find this place, and as soon as I did, it was like, that's the one right there. I need that.
It looks so perfect, by the way. Like this setup, you literally have like my absolute dream setup. Like as far as like house and shop, it's just like, dude, it doesn't get any better than that. I mean, it's
fantastic. Like I can't lie. I got it good over here. That's for sure. The crazy part is though, like it was my dream shop until I finished setting it up and I realized it's not big enough. Not even close. I'm already out of space.
What?
I ran out of space before I even started. And so now I'm on the mission to make a lot of money and expand this out, build a new building here, or expand off of this building or something. I need to at least like double or triple my footprint here to go the next level, because like as soon as we started up with the auto in here and all this other equipment and stuff, obviously I got a lot of great opportunities with sponsors and stuff because of the YouTube channel. So I got a ton of equipment in the shop at this point, and it takes up a lot of room. And I ran out of space really, really quick. So that's hopefully the next step is expansion. But
so you have a new, what is it, like a 10 station, right? The 10 station Rock Auto?
Yeah, it's a 10 color, 12 station Rock Next.
Wow. So now with that, I'm sure that has just increased your output capabilities like a lot. What's your kind of max output right now? Like
right now I'm still working alone. So I've been trying to hire right now. That's kind of my new challenge.
Nice.
Is trying to find people that
Is
I should have hired a long time ago.
Okay,
but I wanted just to make sure that, for starters, like I knew what I was doing and was going to be a good boss for people. And like my big thing is I don't want to be one of those bosses that tells you how to do your job and doesn't know what he's talking about. We've all worked for one of those guys. So I want to make sure that I know how to do everything in the shop at mediocre to high level. Like I want to know exactly how everything works. So if I got to explain something to someone or whatever, then like they're going to take my advice on that, or at least not think I'm just some dickhead coming in from my office and not know what I'm talking about.
Is it weird hiring? Because you've been a one-man show for like this whole time pretty much. I know you have Dan, right?
One
your
guy.
Design guy.
Yeah, Dan's been with me from literally day one. He does all the graphic design stuff. That's where we get a lot of our look from. We kind of like really combine efforts on that, where it's like I'm an idea factory for him a lot of the time, and then he just takes him to a whole other level and does something like he's fucking awesome at what he does. Other than
he's
that,
not printing.
No, he's just literally all graphic design all the time, and which is a big aspect of our business, which is great. But yeah, I do everything else myself, so it's gonna be weird hiring, because I don't know. I would have liked to like hire a friend or something like that, but I'm 36 years old. All my friends have jobs already. They're not just going to randomly need a job one day unless something crazy happens. So I'm going to have to hire some random person I've never met before and like be in close quarters with this new human being and see what that's all about.
Has to be someone you like.
Yeah, that's my big thing. I even put that on social media when I was hiring. I was like, we don't require any experience. I don't care like what if you have print shop experience. I don't care if you even finished high school. I didn't finish high school. Just all I need from you is good work ethic, someone who's going to be able to kind of like share the same values with me on that, and for them not to be weird, just be cool. Someone I want to hang out with all day. That's the only two things I care about. And so I'm looking
it's kind of like being in a band at that point, because like I remember, so me and my brothers, and this is like 10 years ago at this point. We were just in talks with labels. Nothing ever transpired. We never like signed or anything like that. But they would all ask us, like the big question was, so I know you guys are brothers, but do you guys even like each other? And of course we do. We love each other, And I thought that was a weird question until they would tell us the horror stories of bands they had signed that broke up, because nobody in the band could stand each other. They were just all good musicians. And as soon as they went, they could stand each other for the studio. As soon as they sent that band on tour, they're all on the bus together and everything just collapsed. And I was like, oh, so that's why my favorite band only put out one record. Oh, that's a trip. Right. Yeah. And so I feel like that kind of like now as an adult, now here working now that I'm on a team here at Heat Press Nation, it's like, oh, I get it. You have to like the people you work with. Otherwise, it's going to be a rough ride.
Yeah, and I learned that too when I was riding for a living. You know, I'm traveling around the world. There's 15, 20 dudes who are all like real type A personality type of guys that are competing against each other all the time. So there'd be times where people are fighting each other and shit like that. And there's a lot of animosity and things like that. And there'd be little cliques going on. And it was, I learned about that at a very young age.
That's got to be wild.
Yeah, so when it comes to my shop, that's why I care more about who the people are and what they're like than anything else they bring to the table. Because I want it to be kind of like a family atmosphere here to a certain degree. I want people I want to be able to trust these people and like rely on them for stuff. But at the same time, I want to be able to like have a good time with them and have them, not dread coming to work for some reason. I want them to they want to be there and have fun. I want to hang out and headbang to death metal all day with someone I like. That's the goal.
Yeah. Heck yeah, man. Man, you know what's funny? Sorry, and this is just me kind of fanboying out a little bit, but I never thought about that dynamic on the rider tour circuit. Because of course, like as a band, you're playing with other bands, touring, but you're playing like together. No one's competing. Like everybody knows who the headliner is, but there's no one gets a medal at the end for who had the best set. But with riding, I never thought how that competitive edge could I guess show up in the social dynamic of
competing against your friends essentially, and there's money on the line and all this other stuff and like sponsorships and whatever, right? So it sometimes it would get crazy, and like there was a year where me and one dude we were battling for the championship, and we were super good friends at the start of the year, and towards the end of the year not so much, because it was like it's friends off for a while, man, because we're competing at this point.
Oh man.
Yeah, it's crazy, but hopefully those days are behind me and I'm not going to have that kind of shit going on in my shop.
Yeah. Man, so and kind of just going back to the shop here and like how you run your channel, you put your gear through its paces. I think that's one thing that, like, if anyone had ever had a question about the authenticity of Lee Stuart, right? Like, you put gear through its paces, you send stuff back, you're not afraid to say, hey, this machine I thought was going to be dope, it actually sucks. Or, hey, this company, their support, you put them on blast. And not on blast for the sake of just, it's not to just, because some people will do things like that just to get eyes on their videos. But I feel like it comes from a really true place for you, where it's like, hey, if you guys want to use this equipment, just be aware. You're really real and authentic with your audience on the equipment that you're using. But has that caused any brands to like I don't want to say be afraid of you, but have you experienced that?
Yeah, there's multiple brands that will not touch me with a 10-foot pole because of that. And it's funny too. Like I was almost ready to call some out that were in my inbox, like trying to pay me for positive reviews on stuff. Like that happens a lot. They're like, we want to offer you this, but you can only say this about this machine or whatever this supply is or whatever, right? And I'm just like, my first response is like, fuck no. I'm not doing that. At this point, like I started my channel I didn't have any intention of it blowing up and turning into this thing where I was going to get sponsor deals and all that type of stuff. Like I did all that before in my previous career. I know how that all works. And I started off my channel with just documenting my journey, right? And showing people I'm learning how to screen print. I'm learning how to do all this stuff. And that really connected with a lot of people, because they were like, man, you're a no bullshit guy. Like when you're making mistakes, you're showing them. I'm not cutting them out of like every other YouTuber that's like, they're showing the highlight reel of everything. And everything's awesome and perfect all the time. Yeah. And it's like, that's not real life. That's not real business. You're going to make mistakes and do a lot of dumb stuff. And it pained me at times because like I was doing some real dumb stuff, and I left it in the video because it's like, I'm sitting there thinking about it. I'm like, I hate putting this out there, but people are going to learn from this. And I feel like it's valuable to somebody, and maybe I can help them not make that same stupid mistake that I just made. That was what was going on in my head at the time. And people really connected with that. And I gained kind of like a reputation almost of like being very honest, being very real with people. And I was like, that meant like a lot to me, and still does to this day. And when sponsors and companies started kind of knocking on the door later on, I was not going to give that up because of my previous career. I knew what was going to happen, and it happened to me before, and I seen it happen to other people. As soon as sponsorship gets involved, censorship comes next. That's just the way it goes. Yeah. And I was like, that's not happening here. I've built trust with these people, and that means more to me than any of this money or free equipment ever will. So when people started, offering me stuff, literally, and still to this day, the first thing is, it's like, all right, cool. Whatever that offer is, I appreciate it. Sweet. But if you want to work with me, rule number one is I get to say whatever I want. Yeah. And that's it. If you don't like that, you can walk right now. And most of them do. But the ones that stuck around are the ones that are like, they're legit. They share those values like I do. Like, let's say like Ryonet. Ryonet's probably the one, they've been here since the beginning. One of my biggest supporters. They're amazing. And I have not, every product they give me, I haven't given it a positive review. Like, there's been times where I've said this sucks or, whatever. And they look at it differently than most people. They don't look at that as like, ooh, like a marketing blunder. You better stay away from this guy. They immediately get on the phone with me, are like, all right, what went wrong? How did it go wrong? How can we make this better? And that's how companies need to look at it. And yeah, it's really cool that I have a lot of support with people that are willing to do that kind of thing. But yeah, like you said, there are a lot of companies that they won't come near me because of what they're afraid of what I might say, or they're afraid that I swear or say stupid things sometimes in my videos and whatever, and they don't want to be associated with that and whatever. And it's just like, they got to learn that what I've got going on, and there are some other people doing the same thing. It's cool to see that happening. Like, that is the most valuable marketing you can get. You can make the most corporate, amazing type of video and put it out there to promote your product. No one gives a shit about that. The only thing people care about is someone legit who's actually using this thing and telling you the pros and cons about it, and someone that has trust with the people. And it's pretty cool that's where I'm at right now.
So you've probably turned down some big checks. Have you ever second guessed it, like, oh man, I could have gone to Hawaii with this? Has that thought ever even crossed your mind?
I totaled it up one day because, like, it's not so much the ones I turned down, like, 'cause we never really get to the point of like dollars and cents or whatever. It's the stuff all the other YouTubers take, like generic YouTubers kind of thing, I'd like to say. I don't know, just like vloggers and things like that. Yeah. Your email, once you it's weird how it happens too. It's like, as soon as you cross that 100,000 subscriber mark, your email inbox changes immediately. It's super weird. Like, it's like they somehow get a notification that you have marketing power all of a sudden. It's super weird. So I get all these random emails from companies like trying to pay me to peddle just like this weird crap that has nothing to do with screen printing, nothing to do with my channel, like every single day.
Like what? For example, I'm just curious now.
Like, what's that stupid phone game that was on, like, every YouTuber was advertising forever, that Raid Shadow Legends, whatever the hell it's called.
Oh yeah, not League of Legends,
shit like that. Like, yeah, and like weird little stupid products and things like that. Like, review this flashlight and we'll pay you this much money for it. I'm like, why am I going to review a flashlight? What does that have to do with anything? And it's
a screen printing.
Anyways,
flashlight. No.
Yeah, like, there's so much of this stuff that comes in, and I got curious and I started totaling it up one day, and I was like, man, I wish I was a shittier person and took some of these, because it was like $100,000 or something like that when I started totaling it up. But it's just like, man, I could have made a lot of money this year. It's like, again, if I started taking stuff like that and just peddling every little thing that came through the door, I would lose that trust with people immediately, because then they would just get that vibe like, oh, he's just here to make money. He's not here to actually show me this or help me with that. It's just, he's here for a job. And yeah, I don't want to feel that way.
Yeah, well, you're a better man than me. If somebody said, Jared, 100K, start talking about flashlights, bro, I'd be the flashlight king. So I respect you a lot.
Yeah. Oh, at times I'm sitting there thinking, like, man, I wish I was a worse person. Yeah, it just doesn't make sense. And like, if I start doing that, you would see the viewership would start going down. Everything would go down along with it. It would just, selling out would be selling down, essentially.
Yeah. Hey, what's with that? So we're about the same age. I'll be 35 in a couple weeks. And growing up, like, selling out was definitely like, if you were a sellout, like, bro, like, no way. Like, being a sellout was like probably one of the worst things you could be. And then now I feel like the new culture is just, everybody's just chasing that bag. Like, everybody is so quick to be like, oh, my first sponsorship deal. What was it? It's a hemorrhoid cream. Cool. Like, like, everybody's just like so quick to chase the bag that I feel like there's definitely a bit of, I would say it's one of the reasons why, and this is just my opinion, one of the reasons why we kind of authenticity in the general social media landscape is that nobody's afraid to be a sellout anymore.
Yeah, it's two things. Like you said, selling out, like, everyone's It's like kids' most popular thing now. Like when I was a kid, what was the most popular job? Like what you want to be when you grow up was like a fireman or a policeman or something like that. Now it's to be a YouTuber, or to be an Instagram or a TikToker nowadays. That's the big thing. So everyone's kind of chasing that influencer status and to make money doing nothing. Essentially, that's what people want. They want to get something for nothing, and people are getting lazier and lazier and lazier as the years go on. It seems, and they just expect money for minimal effort. And that, social media changed that a lot for people. Because when I was a kid, growing up, selling out was like a bad thing.
Yeah, a very bad thing. Like,
and nowadays it's like you get a sponsorship deal for whatever to promote something on Instagram or YouTube or whatever. It's like, oh hell yeah, that's amazing and whatever, which is cool, I guess, because now I do a little bit of that and people congratulate me for it rather than talk shit. So that's good, I guess.
I think it's cool if it's within your scope, within your range.
So it makes sense if it's actually going to add value to people to a certain degree, right? So like if I was to start reviewing like these flashlights and stuff, nobody gives a shit about that, and that's gonna hurt what I'm doing, and people are gonna trust me less and whatever. But if I'm gonna share something with them that like, my big rule is I won't promote anything that I wouldn't use myself, essentially, right? So if someone comes knocking at something that I haven't used yet, I want to try it first. I want to see if it's cool and whatever, if I like it, and then we'll talk about it. Or if someone comes to me with something I'm already using, it's like, yeah, let's do that. That makes sense because I like this product, I like this thing, and I think this could benefit other people.
Yeah, I love it, man. Now, in addition to, all this that we've been talking about is Rogue Lab and the channel. But besides that, you also do other stuff. You have North of 9, right? Mm-hmm. And then there was one more. I have it written down here somewhere. And then 38 Ride Company. You did actually mention 38 Ride Co. Yeah. So like that's like 4 different things. And for someone like me, like I'm like a one-track mind kind of guy. So maybe I don't know if everybody else sees it this way. You're running 4 different companies essentially, right? Like how do you avoid burnout? And I get this is probably more just like a me question. I don't know if anyone else is thinking this. I'm for sure 100% thinking this. How do you avoid burnout with managing so many different companies and just aspects of the business?
This right here, if you're not watching this on any sort of video platform, it is Google Calendar, my phone right here. Okay. Like the way that I time block and schedule myself, that is how everything works nowadays. Like as soon as I was starting to feel that a while ago with like the burnout and whatever, and I always thought that burnout was never going to happen. I was going hard for so long, and I was just
invincible.
Like, burnouts. I literally said it somewhere where I was like, burnout's just something lazy people say, and it's not. Sometimes it gets you because like last year, anyone who knows what's been going on with me in my shop for the last year, like last year for me sucked. It was bad. Everything that could have went wrong, and that's when I started feeling the burnout. It wasn't necessarily like some people where they feel like they have too much work going on and they burn out. For me, it was just like so much different stress and things going bad for me. That's what burned me out. So when the time came that things were working again, I didn't want to do it because I just was like, I feel like if I start, something bad's going to happen again. And once I started getting into the whole time blocking thing and the Google Calendar, I kind of start taking things like at smaller chunks, smaller doses, whatever. And I slowly built myself back up again to having that motivation. And then now it's the point where like my day is like fully scheduled from the time that I wake up to the time that I fall asleep. Like there's something filling that entire space. And,
does that structure give you comfort or stress?
It does. A lot, actually, because then I know what's going on, what's coming up. I know when to shut it down and give myself like wind down time and free time, because before I would never do that. I would just work from the time I woke up till I went to bed, and I would mess my sleep schedule all up because I would stay up all night and then sleep all day and whatever. And now it's like, 6 o'clock rolls around. It's like hard cut off, 3 hours of free time, go to bed every day. It's like my phone tells me exactly what to do 24 hours a day. And that fixed everything when it came to the burnout stuff and just motivation in general, because it's like, now it's like, I'm looking forward, like what's the next thing coming up? Let's do this. I'm pumped. And then, when that wind down time comes up, it's like, it's teaching me discipline to where I want to keep going at this thing, but I'm like, nope, don't fuck this up. You got to shut it down, come back at it tomorrow. And, it's probably the most powerful thing that I've introduced in my life in the past, I don't know, couple months since I've been doing it. It's literally, I've watched myself and my output just immediately go like, boop, just ramp up huge.
Beautiful. So would you say that like if a lazy person should avoid this industry at all costs?
Absolutely.
You have this really amazing like work ethic that, like, obviously, I'm sure I don't need to tell you that's probably a big part of your success, but like, I have a hard time imagining anybody without a half decent work ethic could even survive.
Yeah, and that's entrepreneurship in general, really.
Yeah.
It's you got to have something in you that's going to push you, because when you're your own boss, there's no one telling you what to do every day, right?
Yeah.
So you can you're calling the shots, and if you don't have that thing in the back of your mind telling you, like, you got to get this done, you got to do this, 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 and this, if you want to get up to this level, you're not going to go anywhere. You got to, if you don't have discipline, it can be taught, it can be learned, you can force it, but you got to start somewhere, and you got to really structure some shit out to make sure you're getting things done. Cause I learned that in the past couple of years. There've been times where I got complacent, and where I let stuff slip multiple times. I could have probably gotten to the level that I'm at now way earlier for sure. If I had the structure that I'm building now 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I'd be way further ahead. Absolutely.
I love it. So, and we're not like quite. I have a couple more questions if we're good.
Oh yeah, we can keep going for as long as you want. Man. Hours. I'm good. I blocked off the whole half of the day for this.
Oh, okay. Oh, nice. Okay, I'm gonna get all my questions in. No. Cool. All right. So now I do have one question. So you have even where you were at, you had your whole basement to work with, right? And kind of going back to heat pressing, because this is Heat Press Nation, so I have to ask a couple heat press questions.
Yeah, man.
So like, I know out here in Southern California, space is at a premium. And I'm just gonna use myself as an example. I have the world's tiniest 2-bedroom apartment, right? And so I just had a son, so yay, he's 7 months
congrats,
right now,
man.
right?
That's
awesome.
awesome.
Thank you. Yeah. So as soon as he showed up, my heat press setup went bye-bye. So like because I run a side business, I have my own t-shirt line, and I do custom jobs for other people as well. Of course, this here, not podcasting exclusively, but working here at Heat Press Nation, it's my 9 to 5. So as soon as my son showed up, all my equipment got moved out of the room, had to make room for all his stuff, right? And so now I have, like, without exaggeration, I probably have like let's just call it like a 6x6 area. So space is at an ultimate premium for me. And I've heard story after story from my customers here, because I'm also in this part of sales here at Heat Press Nation, where it's like, hey, I have an extra bedroom. I have a corner of my garage. I have a really small area. And of course, I feel like that's where heat pressing really gets to shine. But I know you have your thoughts on heat pressing. You started heat pressing, and then you switched over pretty quick to screen printing. But what would you say for people who they have to, for lack of a better term, like, what advice would you give somebody who has to heat press because they don't have any space? They're here in SoCal, rent is through the roof, and they're just really limited on space for now.
Yeah, and heat pressing is great. And I look like a lot of people think that because I'm a screen printer and I'm pretty opinionated on a lot of things, they think that like I'm going to hate on heat pressing, and I absolutely don't. That's how I started. I was telling this story to someone the other day. I pulled it out. That little Stahl's hat heat press that I bought, the first one, I still have it. Even though I don't use it, I'm never going to get rid of that thing, because that is responsible for everything that I have now.
Wow.
And it's heat pressing is probably, it's definitely the best starting point for sure, because there's a low barrier of entry. It's got a low footprint. It's pretty much anyone can do it. It's very easy. However, people nowadays, like, there's starting to be a big shift going on where everyone's really looking at DTF and everyone's really relying on DTF. And there's some people saying like, this is the future. This is the best thing ever. It's not. I'm sorry. I'm going to hurt a lot of people's feelings right now. DTF is the lowest on the totem pole when it comes to
heard
quality.
Hearts break across the internet right now.
Yeah, like there's an army of heat pressers about to burst down my door right now. But it's true. Like it's literally the lowest quality way to make a garment. It's just, that's the facts. Right now, currently with the technology, the way it is, that's just the way it goes. But it's a good way to get started. So if you have a heat press, awesome. But you should be using that as a stepping stone to get into bigger and better things. If you intend on becoming a printer, essentially, if you want to start a shop and producing things for people, then you should be using that as your starting point, your door, and taking that and using that to build up to bigger equipment, more equipment, kind of like I did. So I started off with the hat heat press, then it was the vinyl cutter, and then it was the bigger heat press, and then I used those three things all together to offer more products to eventually save up enough money to go screen printing. And that's kind of the path you should take if you want to have a real shop one day, is start off with the heat press, start off with these small, easy things. You can knock out jobs, kind of learn the ropes, learn how to run a business correctly, learn how to, learn the backside of the business. People don't even talk about, ordering garments all day and dealing with the distributors and weird stuff, setting up your business stuff in the state or country you live in. Like there's a lot of weird stuff that a lot of people don't mention. Learning all that's where the heat press comes in, and then use that thing, make your money, figure out how to build a client base, and then step up. And then eventually those heat presses, they still find life in the shop. Like my heat presses, I've got 4 of them out in my shop right now. They still get used every day almost, because we have a DTG here, so they get used for that type of stuff. We do the odd heat transfer stuff. I do like the printed vinyl transfers on sports jerseys or things like that. We do a lot of motocross jerseys because of my background, so we use it for that. And yeah, it's definitely probably the best starting point you could have right now, but just use it as a stepping stone to go further.
My ADD is kicking in. You talked about DTG. I saw your video where you did the simulated process. I think it's your most recent video. You did the simulated process for that metal band. And I have a question. How come you didn't DTG those? Was it just the quantity issue, or?
Yeah, speed, quantity, and quality.
Okay.
DTG is still, even though I like DTG, I didn't think I would too. That was a shocker to me, because I've dealt with a lot of DTG in the past that I hated. And Polyprint, when they came to me and were like, we want to put a machine in the shop and have you try it out and make some videos and stuff, I was very, very skeptical. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do this. I want to see if I'm gonna give this thing the chance. I don't want to be that guy that just talks shit about something without actually trying it. And so I gave it a chance, and it impressed me big time. And I love that little printer. It's awesome. Like, it's not fast. That's the big thing. It's very, very slow. So if I was to produce that order on the DTG, it would have taken me, I don't even know how much longer. Literally, probably like 50 times longer than it did on the auto. But and quality too. Like DTG has gotten to a point where the quality is really awesome, but it comes in at number 2. Nothing can beat screen printing in terms of quality when it comes to longevity and everything else. Like screen printing, a good screen printed shirt will outlast you, essentially. There's shirts still floating around from the 60s and 70s that dumbasses are paying $400 or $500 for, that the screen print still looks great on it. And that's the way it is. A good screen print will last forever, essentially. And that's something that the other stuff, I don't think, unless some really crazy stuff happens, I don't think we're going to see it really fully catch up with the digital side in our lifetime, personally.
Gotcha.
So yeah, that one was just a speed thing. They ordered, it was like 100 shirts, something like that. Like, it wasn't anything crazy. And but the auto, it ate through that thing. Even though the video was however long, like 10 minutes, I probably spent less time printing that order.
Oh, jeez.
I spent more time filming it than I did actually printing it, because the auto,
Dude,
that thing
awesome.
can smash through an order like immediately, right? Even when I'm operating solo on that thing, I can run like 300 pieces an hour. So it flies through it. If there's 2 people on that thing, we're talking like 700 an hour.
Oh, wow. I did not.
Yeah.
In my mind, I'm thinking,
like,
he's probably doing like 120 an hour. I don't know anything about that.
Yeah, like 600, 700 an hour is no problem for an auto, and that's like a comfortable working pace for a lot of shops. Like, they can go faster. I've seen people run that same press at 1,000 an hour, but they're hauling ass.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to work at that pace. That would suck.
Yeah. Oh man, that's crazy. You've brought up a lot of different print methods, all in the same shop. And I think that's kind of interesting, because people sometimes will ask, like, hey, should I, because we here at Heat Press Nation, we handle a smaller range. We'll handle like heat transfer vinyl, sublimation, and white toner transfers. Those are like, and as I'm sure you know, like the kind of the building blocks, the entry level to pro printing. They always ask, well, which one's the best? And my answer is like, hey, there's not really one single end all print method. Like, it depends on what you want to do. And it's funny, because you're someone who has all the resources available to you, and you still run multiple print methods. Like, what's your opinion on that? I guess, like, what's the best method, or
Yeah, right. You said it. It's there's not one end all be all. It fits different things. So like, there's going to be a different method for this customer. There's going to be a different method for this garment. There's so many different ways that it could be done. So let's say like someone comes in, they want to get this crazy full color print, but they want 5 shirts. You could screen print that, sure, but you're going to set up a huge job that takes a lot of time, and it doesn't make sense to screen print that. Like, you're losing money on that, essentially, because you could be printing something else with a higher volume that makes more sense. However, DTG, that's where that thing lives in my shop. It's to take on those 3-piece, 5-piece orders, or something that's got just an absurd amount of color. That's pretty much anything under like 25 pieces. I'll throw out the DTG. That's if it's high color. If it's say like more than 5 or 6 colors, if it's 25 pieces, then I'll throw it on the DTG. Anything less, we'll screen print that. And same with like the vinyl stuff, right? So like someone wants one motocross jersey printed. That's where the printable heat transfer vinyl comes in. Perfect for that. And it's, it's got dye blockers and everything else, so it can handle that type of thing. It's funny, like that's, everyone, I get this question a lot, like what's the best way to start and what's the best way to print? And I give them the same answer. There isn't one. It's what's the best for that particular project? What's the best for you? It's like the age old thing in screen printing. Probably the most common question that I get every single day is like, what's the best white ink? And I tell people there isn't one. There literally is not one.
Yeah.
It comes down to your setup. It comes down to what you're printing. That's what matters more than the ink you're actually using.
Oh, that's crazy. Dude, I love to hear it. I got one more question, and, well, I got like technically 2, but one more real
Let
question.
them all rip.
All right. And we like to end it. So we're going to go ahead and wrap up soon. But I like to end with this question to all my guests. If you could go back in time, let's say time machine's real, Doc Brown shows up, right? But you can go back in time to freshly retired from motocross Lee, right before you're starting up the print shop and everything. If you can go back in time and give younger Lee some advice, like what would you tell him? Like how would you help him on his future journey?
Oh, first thing I would tell him is learn discipline and structure. Like for a long time, I operated like I could just do everything all the time. And it feels like you're getting a lot done and you're really making a lot of progress, and you do. But once you learn that structure and learn that discipline, you get so much further, so much faster, and enjoy everything else so much more. Like I was talking about earlier, like I could have, if I had learned what I learned now 3-4 years ago, I'd be at a way higher level right now, guaranteed. I only just started really putting this into play in the last like couple of months, and it's changed my life completely, essentially. So if I could tell myself that a few years ago, right now I'd be, even though my shop is 200 feet from my house, I might be driving a Lamborghini there just because. Nice. If I had that kind of discipline and structure when I started, I think I'd be in a crazy place right now.
So that's like it's kind of like the cheat code in a sense.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
It is. It really is. And that's how like I learned it from like a lot of outside sources. So I don't really, I mean, I do pay attention a lot to like the industry stuff. Like I look up to people like Ryan Moore. He's a legend. And guys like my buddy Richard Tilley, he's always bombing out awesome advice to people all the time. But I also look for a lot of outside sources of learning and motivation. And even though like I've never served in the military or anything like that, people that I really, really look up to and get a lot from are like, the retired special forces guys that are out there putting out like books and podcasts and things and like teaching people a lot of the stuff that they learned throughout their careers. And I get a lot from that, like so much. And that's where I started learning the discipline thing and whatever. And that's like, they base everything they do around discipline essentially. And I mean, these guys are doing way crazier. They're doing feats that other people in the world can't even fathom. So if I can take that same thing and apply it to something as stupid as printing shirts, I could probably get pretty far with it. Right? So as soon as that clicked in my head, man, it was game on. And yeah, it helped a lot.
Dude, man, that is golden to me, because that's probably one, and I've said it already, like people who listen to this podcast are already tired of hearing me sing this song, but like, man, I really could not, when my son showed up, it rocked my world, and I could not, I lost all discipline, organization for running my 9-to-5, my marriage, my side business, and now this new thing. It just really, I don't know. And he's my pride and joy. I love him to death. Like, don't get me wrong, but I wasn't prepared. I for sure didn't have the discipline. So like, I'm going to make sure my wife doesn't listen to this podcast, because then now she's going to tell me to get more disciplined, and then that's going to be bad for me. No, I'm just kidding. But
yeah, like think about like one of those same dudes like that I look up to being thrown in that same situation, right? So like, babies, they wake up screaming because they crap themselves at 4 o'clock in the morning all the time.
Yes, they do.
Imagine someone who has spent their lives doing these crazy things or being in the military, that like their clock in their body, they wake up at 4 in the morning. That's normal for them. So that's like, all right, this is already part of my day. I'm just doing this thing. This is my first task in the morning. people's mindset and how they train themselves really can apply them so much better or worse to different scenarios. And yeah, that's what I'm trying to figure out right now. I'm not sitting here thinking I have all the answers to this, because I sure as shit don't, but I'm learning and I'm sorting it out. So people have been asking me to make a video about this whole thing for the last like 2 weeks since I started showing this Google Calendar thing. So now I got to figure that out and teach people what I'm.
I would love that video for sure.
Yeah, I think that'd be cool.
Yeah.
So it's crazy to see. Like, most people are like, teach me this print method, teach me how to run my business. And then I showed people that. Now everyone wants to learn that. I was like, that has nothing to do with anything that I show normally. But I can see why it would be beneficial. So I guess I'll do it.
Dude, I love it. Well, you got any big 2023 plans coming for like Rogue Lab or any of your brands?
Yeah, man. The brands are kind of like, they've been on the back burner for a while just because I can only do so much. And last year I really struggled a lot with everything going so wrong in the shop. And now I'm kind of playing catch up again, because it was bad. It wasn't just a scenario where all the stuff didn't work. Like, people forget when your shop doesn't work, other stuff follows it. Like, you lose clients and things like that. So essentially I was starting off from ground zero again a couple months ago, trying to regain clients and regain work and get back moving again. And so that's been my focus for the past while. So I've kind of put the brands on the back burner. Those are like personal projects that I can do whenever. That's like a fun thing. My main focus is getting this shop up to a level that it can run basically without me. I would love to have it there within the next, I think a year is crazy to think of, but like 2 years, I think is a possibility where I can have this place so self-sufficient that it'll run the same way, whether I'm here or not. That's the biggest goal for me. Other than that, I really want to get the channel back moving again. Of course, I didn't make videos very much last year, so I'm really focused on getting that back going again and getting on a schedule with that. That's the really hard one to get into my schedule now, is to get disciplined to where I have a video every week, because trying to fit that into my schedule is nuts, but I'll figure that out. And I just got an embroidery machine literally yesterday, so I'm going to be learning that stuff now. That's a whole other world that I have no idea about. And I also just got a laser engraver that's still sitting in the box. I got to set that up. So we're going to be doing a lot of cool new stuff on the channel and in the shop this year. Being able to combine all these pieces of equipment now, because now it felt like the laser showing up was like the last piece of the puzzle that was able to allow me to like combine certain things, like combine screen printing and embroidery together, combine heat pressing and embroidery, or there's so many different things that the laser just ties together. I think it's going to be some real interesting content coming out this year. So I've got some ideas I've got a lot of ideas that I've never seen out there before in terms of just cool ways to make a garment. So I think they're original ideas. I don't know. We'll see, I guess. But
dude, as a fan of the channel, I am stoked for all of this. You're saying all this, and I'm like, oh yeah, let's do it. Let's go.
Yeah, man. Like there's so many cool possibilities that I have at my fingertips now, and it's just like my brain is constantly running. That little hamster is running 1,000 miles an hour on the wheel up there, and yeah, that's a big one. And of course, like I spoke about earlier, my biggest goal is shop expansion, because I'm out of space and I want to keep this thing growing. I want to get a second press going in there and get other equipment just to make a better product, make my job easier, automate more things, to get something like a CTS and things like that, or getting, auto reclaims going or whatever, just anything that's going to step up our value and step up our product and step up what I can do on the channel. Like I'm going after it.
Yeah. That's exciting. That's really cool. So one more time for the people, where can everybody find you online?
Yeah, so just look me up, Lee Stuart 38 on any platform. Spell my name right though; it's Stuart, not the other way. Yeah, I got the same handle on literally every platform out there, as well as Rogue Lab MFG. That's the one for the shop, and again, every platform for that one.
Beautiful. Man, Lee, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us today, for joining us on the podcast. We really appreciate it. I know you're a busy guy. I'm sure I appreciate you blocking all that time out for us on the calendar, man. Thank you so much. And yeah, have a blessed day.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for having me, man. It was fun.
Cool, man.